complete. I apologize for the small delay. We've had a couple of issues to solve before we could actually start, but a very welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us also half an hour before that we are usually do. But that's because today we've got very welcome and special guests from the other side of the world, from the Technology Transfer Office in Japan, and it's a real pleasure to be able to join together our forces and deliver to you this webinar altogether about intellectual property and digitalization. Of course, besides friends from the other side of the world, we've got also other important members of our panelist group today from Europe, and a special welcome goes as well to Professor Alex Wurzer from CEIPI. Thank you very much for being with us today. And I will not forget, and do not want to forget, also our cousins of the South Asia IP Helpdesk, SME Helpdesk, and also the friends from the China and Latin America IPR SME Helpdesk. I will steal you a couple of minutes at the beginning of this webinar, but I just want to make sure that you understand how the system is working, because like that we can then ask all the questions that you want to ask, and they will be written down in the document that you can see in here. And the first slide that we often receive is, when will you receive today's presentation recording and slide? And that is going to happen either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. I'm going to cut the audio of the presentation and I will send it back to you as soon as possible, of course, together with the slides that you have followed today. Now, let me also introduce the logos that you can see up here. It's the European IP Helpdesk, of which I am part. Of course, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Michele Dubini, and I'm part of the European IP Helpdesk training team. And those are the services that we currently offer to small and medium enterprises and researchers.
Michele, the slide's not changing.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, now it's changing.
And we pretty much start our and provide our information from our central website, from where you will have access to training publications like template documents, or also informative publication regarding intellectual property rights, and to all the events that we are involved currently, both on site, which are, as you can imagine, not very many at the moment, but also online. And our webinars are always open for registration, and you can register and take part for the webinars in the second part of the year. We also have a helpline which answers to the questions of the users within 3 working days and in the most understandable possible way, so that if you have a question regarding the nature of intellectual property rights in Europe, or their registration or their costs as well, you can simply write to our helpline in order to receive an answer to this question. The very same principle is actually valid for our cousins outside Europe. What it changes is pretty much the geographical scope. So if you, for example, have a question regarding the intellectual property and intellectual property right, let's say within the Horizon 2020 program, or for registration of a European at the European Patent Office procedure, then you can gladly write to us and write to our helpline. But let's say that, for example, you have the need of registering a IPR in Singapore because you're going to base part of your business in there, then the help desk you should direct your attention to is the Latin America IPR SME Helpdesk. They can help you, or at least describe the procedures that you're going to have to follow in order to be able to file your intellectual property right. And the very same for China, and the very same for Latin America. Also, we are going to be together with the EU-Japan Technology Transfer Helpdesk, and the services of the EU-Japan Technology Transfer experts are a little bit different from the ones that our four cousin helpdesk offer, but their objective is anyway to support EU and Japanese companies, as well as universities and research centers, or individuals as well, in their steps in search for technology and understanding the mechanics of tech transfer transactions. Therefore, the services that they offer as well are supported by their website, which is EU-JP-TT-helpdesk.eu. And you can find in there also general content about intellectual property right, technology transfer, and other related topics within the EU and Japan. Also, webinars and video are available. And at the end of the day, it's a very useful service for Japanese companies, but also European companies, with particular attention to SMEs. Then our last guest today is going to be CEIPI, the Center for International Intellectual Property Study. And for a better description of CEIPI, I would simply leave the word to its director, Dr. Alexander Wurzel, and you can say a couple of words on your services, perhaps.
Yes, of course. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I will show you that in my slides. So we offer, of course, training programs and education, especially a distance learning program and university diploma based on distance learning certificates for IP management, especially within the digitalization, and different university certificates dedicated to typical issues in IP management, so valuation, strategy development, organization, and but I will show that a little bit later.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, finally, we come to the real content for which I suppose you all have joined us today. So we are going to start with an introduction regarding intellectual property management and digitalization. We are going to talk about very generally about the application and filing trends at the beginning, but we're going to focus then on the concept of IP design, especially in the digital transformation. We have a lot of interesting examples that are going to be introduced to you, and that you will have the chance perhaps to compare also to your activities. I think that is the most interesting part of our webinars that we're going to offer to you today, the examples actually from real life companies that will hopefully make you understand the importance of the market, how important the market actually is for the value of intellectual property and intellectual property rights. And exactly for this, we have decided to call in our colleagues from the China, Southeast Asia, and Latin America IPR Helpdesk to bring you useful and interesting examples from their own experience and their own part of the world. So we have tried to keep this webinar as international as possible, covering all the possible all the possible countries and geographical regions with our example, but at the same time, we wanted to give you a solid basis of knowledge regarding the theory and the practice of intellectual property and artificial intelligence and the digital market. So I hope you will enjoy our webinar today, and I will now mute myself, leave the word to Professor Alexander Wurzel, who you should already be able to move the mouse as you please. Yes, you are. So you can change the slides as well, simply by correct.
Yeah, that works very well. Thank you very much. Wonderful. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm trying to explain as short as possible what's going on in the European arena on IP management and digitalization. Or we will see we have three terms: digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation, and we will try to puzzle out what that means. Two words to what we are doing in Strasbourg. So we are the Center for the Education for European Patent Attorneys, and I'm running there a program, a master program and a university diploma, a distance diploma on IP management, and different certificates dedicated on different issues. And we try to help especially mid-sized companies to cope with the fact that we have nearly an explosion on digital patents, digital patent applications. So in terms of patents which describe more or less digital technologies and digital solutions, and we will come to that, what is the difference there and how these kind of patents are, so to speak, constructed. So what is the way of thinking which is there applied, and this is quite different from what we see in classical technologies. And we do together with the EPO whatever we can to bring out the knowledge on different digital topics like blockchain, like artificial intelligence, so that we try to help interested people, especially startups, companies, universities, so how to protect the digital aspects of their solutions. And this is what we're doing, or what I'm doing in Strasbourg especially. This is our new university diploma on a distance basis. We run a blog. I will show you that. There are all the case studies. Everything what I present to you is already published, is available, and can be used also for the teaching on your own or for others. And what we developed over the last years in Strasbourg is a tool which is called IP Design, which helps or should help companies to create their IP position within a digital transformed environment. So quite often it happens that you have a certain situation where you cannot make your innovations right now, cannot bring that to the market, but then it is important to cover your ideas, to cover your future positions with IP, and therefore you have to create a dedicated IP position. This is IP design. So it comes from thinking in business models. It comes from thinking about customer decisions. So it is not a pure thinking in technology, because the technology itself typically don't explain you which kind of patent you would like to have. This is just a prerequisite that you have an invention. The cornerstone is your future position which you would like to have in a digital transformed market. And when you understand that you don't have to do, that you don't have to be able to realize what you patent, then it makes you much more agile and creates this much higher speed. And this is due to the fact that the digital transformation speeds up, and we need to adapt to this changing environment. And it is an aspect of overcoming silo thinking in terms of patent guys, for example, just think about patents, and marketing guys just think about marketing. So then they come together, product management, digital experts, and IP experts, when they come together and create a meaningful IP portfolio for future positions which we would like to claim for, then we overcome this separation, and we really can cover then whole business models, use cases, and this kind of digital objects. So we developed that process with many companies from the industry, and we apply again and again this kind of thinking and these processes to companies, and write use cases, write case studies about that, and they are all published and can all available in English, and they explain how to implement and realize IP design, and what I explained to you now, what I will explain to you, how can that be applied in very different industries and very different branches. So what is different when we talk about use case oriented digital patents? So here we have an PCT application from Signify. So Signify is a wonderful example. It's just one example from hundreds of patents. And here I grabbed out this patent application because I think that that's very obvious to learn something from that case here. So Signify is from Philips, and 6 billion part, which revenue part, which license out use cases to the lighting industry. And you know, LEDs. So Philips typically made the business with light bulbs, but light bulbs have the wonderful characteristic that they burn out relatively in relatively short time, and then you can sell the next light bulb. So LEDs have a very, very long lifetime, and that makes the business difficult with LEDs when you just sell hardware, when you just sell an LED. So what Signify is doing, they started to make an intangible business based on LEDs. So they said, okay, with light we can solve a lot of problems. We can realize many use cases based on the fact that we understand the combination of hardware and software, and we understand the real need of people within that use cases. So, and this example here is the evacuation of an business space, of an office space, and the patent application explains that you have a certain population of people and you have a population of objects which are all dynamic, and then when you want to evacuate this kind of this room, then they use certain algorithms, and then they show you with the integrated LEDs how you should move, that you can evacuate as fast as possible, as effective as possible, this room. And why I'm showing you that? I'm showing you that because you can learn here that this kind of patent application is definitely not developed in an R&D laboratory. This is not this kind of R&D result which we are typically in classical technologies expect This is obviously a different way of thinking. So it's a thinking in what can we realize in the customer experience and how can we realize that. But it comes from a thinking in customer experience, in a user journey, and definitely not coming from the technological perspective that we can do that, and how should we do that. Here the cornerstone is what should be the customer experience which we can sell later on, we can license later on based on hardware, software, and IP rights. So, and what we observe, especially in Europe, where we come from very classical technological environment, we observe here again and again a three-phase digitization. The first phase could be called digitization. So this is just making a machine smarter. Okay, so we have any physical object. We will see it can be a plate of wood, a physical object, and we enhance, we make it smarter, so we optimize the effectiveness of that object. Here it is a combined harvester from glass, so it's a productivity machine, and we can optimize the productivity with sensors, actors, analytics, whatever. But then in the second phase, we realize that this individual machine is optimized now, and we run in physical limits that we cannot optimize that anymore. And then the next step is that we realize that at our customers who are using that machines, here the farmers, that they don't run a single machine. What they do is they realize processes, and different machines do something. For example, here harvesting of corn, and they do that in an environment. So this is then the second phase, and we could call that digitalization. So because now we transform analog and human-orientated processes into an smart process, digitalized process environment. So that means a digitalized object is acting now in a digitalized environment. And that means these two machines here coordinating themselves when the corn tank is full and we have to dump the corn into the lorry. And that means we optimize the diesel consumption, we optimize the load on the soil, and we don't need any human decisions here to optimize that process. And in addition, the harvester collects data from the soil, from the productivity, from the quality of the soil, and we can use then this quality data later on, half year later, when we have to use artificial fertilizer. Then we know on which part of the soil we have to use a higher concentrated and lower concentrated artificial fertilizer. So that means we have that situation that now in the second phase, we take into account that these smart machines interact in a digitalized environment, and they interact between themselves. So, and then in the third phase, I realize that I don't do that only once anywhere on the planet. I understand that I do that again and again, 24/7 around the globe. And that means we can use now this data which is available from the digitalized machines which are acting in digitalized environments, and I can realize platforms. This is then the third phase, and we could call that digital transformation, because now the business models are changing. So far in first phase and second phase, typically the business models itself are not changing. We run the same business logic, for example, selling physical objects like harvesters, and we're just optimizing what happens. Okay, in the third phase, once we are on digital platforms, we change the way how the different entities in such an ecosystem are working together, how their roles are. For example, that we can collect data on a certain pest, on a certain problem on the field, which is this data is available from out of the field, and I collect that, give them to the chemical industry, and they can in real time observe what happens out in the fields, which kind of pesticide, which kind of fertilizer is used, under which weather conditions, and I can optimize then my chemicals, for example, to improve the quality of the corn or something like that. So we do different ways of business in up there when we are in the digital platforms. So and the point is now that in these different phases, I need totally different IP strategies. IP has different roles within that businesses. So in the first phase, I'm looking for a so-called value-added monopoly. Okay, so I try to get premium prices for more effective or more efficient machines. So, and we explained that in one of our certificate courses, so which kind of strategies there are and how we optimize that. But just as a first impression, yeah, the second phase, once we are in that process optimization, we are looking to something completely different. Now we don't have isolated machines. We have to understand now, for example, how can we collect data? Which kind of data model do we need to understand the quality of soil, for example? So now we have digital twins. We need interfaces that these machines can interact with each other. So now something completely different takes into account data models, interfaces, data exchange. So, and then in the third phase, we talk about interoperability. So now, and we talk about curation mechanisms. So with which quality can you come on my platform? So which kind of quality we have to take into account? How can we measure the quality of your services on our platforms? How can we test that, and so on? So interoperability is key on the third phase. That means I have to understand in which phase I am, in which phase my industry is, which role I want to play here, and then I have to create my IP. So, and so Klaas, we already discussed, and Klaas made the decision, this is the upper left example, Klaas made the decision 10 years ago to become a player within what we call digital or smart farming, and which is not anymore orientated on machines, which is now orientated on the usage of data on farms. And they decided that long before they realized any product, they started to create an IP portfolio against, for example, much bigger competitors like John Deere, that they became a player here to define their role within a digital transformation and transforming environment in smart and digital farming. So and all these cases are published and well documented. You can read that. There are movies available, everything. So Rittal is a different case. So here we talk about switch gears, and we talk about the casings, the cases. So Rittal is just producing the spare parts for the cases. The switch gears itself are produced by switchgear manufacturer. So IP design can also be seen as a kind of nightmare catcher, because the owner of that company, of Rittal, he had the vision, and the whole industry is discussing the vision of a fully integrated digital value chain for switchgear production. And this is lot size 1, so every switchgear is individual. And the company Rittal is on a very specific point in the value chain of that industry. So that means they are not in the planning phase of that switchgear. This comes upstream in the value chain from Rittal, and they are not downstream, so they're not producing switchgears. They just deliver, so like IKEA, they just deliver spare parts for the casings. So, and their nightmare is what happens when there is a digital twin for switchgears. And this digital twin would not take into account, would not use our spare parts. It would use or fit just with other spare parts. So that is the horror. And so what they did is they created a patent portfolio for this integrated digital value chain in the switchgear production. And so that means they created patents for upstream value chain aspects and downstream value chain aspects. So they, so to speak, they reached out to other value chain positions and not just to their own value chain position to make sure that no third party can come and kick them out of the business. And this is exactly what we saw, for example, what Amazon did with the book market, or other platforms are doing, or what iTunes did, and Spotify with the music market. So there are value chain positions, and these value chain positions are changing in their importance according to digital transformation, especially when platforms come into your business. And therefore you need a patent portfolio to make sure that you can defend and you can be the driving part, or at least you can defend your own position within such a changing value chain in a business. Okay, third example is Doka. This is on the lower right part. Doka makes framework for concrete construction. So, and you know, concrete has to strengthen. You have to weight. And this company came to me and said, "Yeah, we." So you know, concrete. We use concrete construction now for 2,000 years, and still today, the head of the on the concrete construction side decides out of his experience or her experience when we have to strip off the framework. They said, okay, we have an invention, yeah, we integrate a sensor in such a wood plate here. I hope you can see that. And again, it's published, you can read that later on. And we want to integrate that sensor, and with that we want to measure how dry is the concrete now, how good it is, the strengthening happened, and then we want to determine the stripping time. Can we patent that? And I said, okay, listen, first, I don't think that's new. And second, I think it is easy to bypass, because we could use sensors which are in the concrete and not in the wood plate. And third, I don't believe that you want that patent. I said, and they said, what? How can you want a patent? I said, yeah, IP design says that you try to understand the digital transformation of your situation, and you create a portfolio which holds you in that game. So that means let us try to understand what could happen once we have that data. And now we have to understand that here for Doka, on-site concrete means that you use recipes and you use ingredients which are available there. So concrete in Asia, concrete in Middle East, concrete in Europe, it's not the same. It's always a different recipe, and it is also a different recipe for different objectives which we have on the concrete building site. So that means once we have that data of the strength and behavior of concrete, and we combine that with the concrete recipes which are also available globally, we can recommend how to mix, how to prepare the concrete for certain objectives. So we can optimize the productivity on building sites, and not just by determining the stripping time. So, and we developed a lot of business models, use cases, and patents for that, simply to make sure that DOCA, which comes from framework selling, could run that kind of businesses in the future. Okay, last example, Hansgrohe. So Hansgrohe is making shower heads. You see here one. And Hansgrohe asked the question, what exactly is the meaning of showering? And so it turned out that showering for many people means the only 5 minutes of the day where they are alone, where they can relax, and when they can have a kind of meditation. So it's a habit to shower, and it's not just an hygienic issue. And they developed this showering experience by combining different sensors like light, pictures, sound, scent, temperature, the way how the water comes out of the shower head, and they orchestrate that to a full experience. And so you can say showering because the orchestration, the remote of that, all that sensors comes from an app. So you can say what RainTunes is doing, Hansgrohe is making showering an app. And that is what you finally see. What you see is an app, and people come to me and ask, Alex, can we patent an app? And I say, naja, you cannot patent an app when it is not patentable, but you can create something which can be patented, and what you see is later on an app. So that means the app itself is maybe not patentable how it is designed, but you can design it in a way that you can get this thing exclusive. And in all that cases, the apps, so to speak, are patented, but we have to understand what exactly is patented here. And I can explain you that with Shazam. So Shazam has more than 200 patents around a very, very simple, the most simple kind of user experience. It's just you're pushing a button, and then you get the information which kind of song is right now around you, and then you can switch to Spotify and download that song and can listen to that. So it sounds extremely simple. What the user experience is extremely simple, but it is obviously extremely complex. Otherwise, we won't see 200 plus patents for that. And what Apple is doing, Apple is obviously using the forbidding right character here. So they don't want just to protect against imitation. They want to have factual and enforceable exclusivity for their solution. And that means they use all that layers here. The physical product is the mobile phone, and then sensors and actuators, connectivity, analytics, and digital. And what you see finally is a digital service. And this is and the patent portfolio is used in all the different stages to make sure that we have factual and enforceable exclusivity for this kind of user experience, and not just for the details of that one realization. And we can go further with that kind of thinking and look at Netflix. So this is a PhD project which we run right now. Netflix, when I would ask you, does Netflix has patents, you maybe would say no. For what? They are a content streaming platform. But fact is that they Netflix is using patents to make sure that the user experience, even when the network connectivity is low or other problems happen, that you have an optimized customer experience, and they use the whole piano keyboard here, all the levels with their patents to exclusify the customer experience. And to go further, you can watch that movie. So I will put the slides with the movies on the blog, and you can watch the movies there. So this is a cooperation between Tencent, so this is the Chinese Netflix plus Google, so to speak, and they cooperate with an European IP holding company Myriad for HI, so artificial intelligence, and what they're using. So first of all, this patent portfolio encompasses, again, the whole range, all the levels, and what they do is they create, again, an user experience, and here a highly and radical individual user experience. So what they're doing is, in already existing movies, they implement based on artificial intelligence, they implement later on, after these movies are produced, product placement. And they integrate it in a way that you do not realize that this is a product placement, and you don't realize that this is an artificial intelligence which is doing that. And you can say, when I like Pepsi, then I see in that movie Pepsi advertisements, or that somebody's drinking a Pepsi. And when you like Coca-Cola, you will see the same movie, but you see that with Coca-Cola. So in a nutshell. And that means this is a radical individualization, AI-based, fully patent protected, and it is done to create a user experience, and here business model orientated, because of course all these platforms have the problem that they have to come free of advertisements. On the other hand, they have to make money because they have to produce content which is extremely costly. And so this is a way to individualize customer experiences and to patent the way how it is realized. So, and we have the same here in Germany, for example, a cooperation ThyssenKrupp with Microsoft, and we did there a user experience in terms of the selling of stair lifts, and we use the HoloLens for that. And the patents also, again, use all that layers to make this customer experience very individual and unique. And okay, and again, you can watch that movie in the blog or on the slides. What I would like to tell you is the overall strategy, the overall concept behind that. So we have a certain customer benefit, and this means a willingness to pay. And our forbidding rights have to make sure that the competitors come not in the position to offer a similar customer benefit. And we do that over that steps with the digital, which gives us the digital transformation, and we offer it in an ecosystem, a digital ecosystem. And that is the role of IP here. The problem which we have to take into account is the fact that third parties, so you can say the classical companies come on this slide from down there, from the physical product, and looks up and see the layers of digitalization. The digital companies, they come from up there, from the digital service, and they don't care so much about the physical products and layers. And so that means when you come from the physical part, you look up and you see that there are totally new competitors which do not compete against you on the physical layer. They cannot compete, they cannot do that, but they offer a comparable service, and maybe you want to offer that, and there are already third-party patents. Okay, the good news is what you can learn is you can use a taxonomy of digital patents which are able to describe and protect all that use cases as long as they have a digital nature. And we describe that in all that case studies for the fleet management from Hilti, from an expert system from Herios, whatever it is, as long as it is a digital-based use case, you can apply this taxonomy to explain how to create and protect digital-based use cases. The cornerstone of that thinking is that when it is software-based, it is important that you don't ask, after you created it, can I patent it now? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. This is the right thing. This is the same thing as when you ask, I write a software and now I would like to have it portable, or I want to have it safe or robust. That doesn't make any sense. You maybe in the architecture and the implementation, you ruined that and you cannot ask about that later on. So you start from scratch. And the same thing is with digital and software orientated objects with patentability, protectability, free from third-party rights. You have to make sure from the beginning of your development that you integrate this characteristic in your solution. And this applies to all digital objects like business models, platforms, ecosystems, whatever. And we developed in Strasbourg a notification process and a notification documentation that can be applied to design digital objects in a way that they are patentable later on and free of third-party rights. And this can be applied to the very specific way how software is developed, because software development is different from classical. This is not the classical stage gate process. It is much different. It's agile, and therefore you need a totally different, a software-based orientated notification process. And this process takes care that you capture really the whole invention and not just what the inventor thinks what could be an invention, and it makes the digital object in a way that it is patentable. Okay, so in a summary, first, digital inventing is different. We have to think here in use cases, in business models, and not so much in technology. The inventions are different. That means we have quite abstract objects, and that makes digital patents different. They are more abstract. They come from a perspective of use cases and business models. And when we want to meet the objective of having FTO, then we have to produce FTO and not just test FTO. Okay, so where you can learn that in our distance program, we offer certificates to all that different aspects of IP management, and that are just in 3 months distance learning part-time. You can get that, and we cooperate quite intensive with the with the European IP Helpdesk. You find us here at IP Specials, and you can come then to our Business Academy, where we offer all that content, we offer all that blog, we offer all that information of that use cases free of charge. It's available for you. This is the blog, and I hope I was not too long, but I tried to tell the story that everybody can understand, at least on a first level, what's going on here, especially in Europe, within the digital transformation and the usage of IP within it. Thank you very much.
To you, Alexander. In case there should be question on this first part, I would kindly ask you to write them on the right hand side of your screen. You are going to have a question part, and you can use that in order to ask us questions. I will in the meantime gather all those questions, and we will answer them later on. Now we are going to start with our particular cases from around the world, and as you can see, we're going to start with China and with blockchain technology. Matthias Zubimendi is going to talk about this particular issue, and I will give you the control of the keyboard and mouse, and you should be able now to talk. Matthias, thank you very much, first of all, for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm checking if I can control the, yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm going to talk about blockchain and the use of blockchain as evidence in China. First, let's start with a brief introduction about what is blockchain technology. Blockchain, it is an open ledger that can be used to record and track transactions. This information is shared on a peer-to-peer network, so all the parties can see, exchange, and verify it. The main advantage of blockchain technology is that it allows transparency. Multiple parties can see what was entered into the ledger without any single party having the ability to change any ledger entry. How it works? It works that each transaction or block is transmitted to all the participants in the network and must be verified by each participant node, solving a complex mathematical puzzle. Once the block is verified, it is added to the ledger or chain. The origin of blockchain technology comes with the Bitcoins, and since then it's trending and it's working globally. In China, blockchain is already available as a legal tool. It can be used as a way to preserve evidence, and there are three main uses for intellectual property issues. The first one is that it can be used as copyright registration. The second one is that it can be used as a way to prove the prior use of trademarks. Finally, and I think most importantly, it can be used by SMEs or any kind of company to prevent cyber theft and to protect trade secrets. About copyright registration, how this work? When we're talking about copyright registration, what is really important is to be able to prove when an artwork was done, to have a certain date, so we can prove that this artwork was done by some person in a particular time. The most common or the regular way to prove this is with the deposit in the copyright office in each country. But in China, it is already possible to use blockchain, as I mentioned. The user can register at any time and in any place, enabling a more efficient registration process than the copyright registration agency. This means that any artist in any moment can directly upload to blockchain his or her artwork, and it would be already protected. The registration is done and recorded on the chain of the blockchain, and we have an immutable timestamp which forms a powerful proof of rights. The Office of Central Cyberspace Affairs Commission of China has already announced in March of 2019 the first batch of domestic blockchain information service filing for copyright protection. So even the Chinese government is already having a specific agency and providing a specific service so artists can protect their art with blockchain. But of course, it's not only for artists, for companies can also take advantage of this to protect, for example, software. It is also available to protect the prior use or to prove the prior use of a trademark. The user can record the prior use of the trademark at a certain date. How they do this? They just upload relevant evidence to the blockchain and create an information chain with a timestamp of the first time that the trademark was used. There is a company called kbyon.com that is a Chinese company that is already working on this specific topic. They specialize on trademark protection with blockchain. What they do is the owner of the trademark just uploads the evidence, could be pictures, documents, anything that it can be used as evidence in a specific case that the trademark was used in a specific moment, and they just upload it on the blockchain. And the third use, and I think the most important one, is that it can be used to protect trade secrets and to avoid cyber theft. How this work? For this, we have to understand a little bit more about how blockchain works. Blockchain actually uses a hash algorithm. This means that each piece of information on the chain, it is transformed into one unique hash. Normally, a hash is a numeric number sequence. That can be read by the software. And what companies can do is is upload the trade secret, and this information will be transformed into a hash, let's say a number sequence. So the person, the other people will be able to read the number sequence, but if they are not able to translate this number sequence into the actual information, the trade secret will be protected. It will be possible to prove that this information was obtained in a certain specific time, but no one will be able to actually have access to the content till it is translated. So how can this work to protect IP? The first one is, as I mentioned, since the information in the form of hash value, not the trade secret itself, the specific content of the trademark is not exposed. There is a proof of trade secret without revealing it. But also it is possible to track the theft, since normally when you have access to a node or a chain of the blockchain, it is possible to track who had access to this information. And normally when we are talking about trade secret leaks, normally they are coming from inside people, employees, leaving directors, employees that are opening their own companies. So if they have access with their user, then it will be possible to track who had the access and who was the person who leaked the information. And this can be used as evidence. There is one very important case in China, very famous, that is called Huanzhou Huatai Email Culture Media versus Shenzhen Daotong Technology Development, that it litigated on the internet courts. For those who are not familiar with internet courts, in China there are 3 big internet courts in Beijing, Guangzhou, and Hangzhou. They are courts with a very specific and special jurisdiction. They work only for e-commerce and internet IP infringement. They are very, very fast for solving cases. Actually, the average case only takes 38 days, and when there is a trial, the average time of a trial is 28 minutes. Everything happens online. You can upload the evidence and any kind of documents with your phone, and everything, as I said, happens online. Even the trial is a video conference. This course didn't start with this pandemic. Actually, it started several years before, so it is very interesting, and it's a huge improvement of China when solving internet cases. What happened in Huanzhou versus Shenzhen Daotong? What happened is that Huanzhou Huatai alleged that Shenzhen Daotong published on their website one piece of work, one of their copyrighted protected art, without having their own authorization. So they started the case in the Hangzhou court, but what did was collect evidence through a third party called Baoquan.com, that is a specific, is a third party, a company that specializes on collecting online evidence and protected with blockchain. What they did is to collect evidence in a very specific way. What they did is not only to take screenshot of the website, but also to download the source code and insert it into a blockchain and present it as an evidence to the Huanzhou Internet Court. The court held that the blockchain technology, based on its characteristics of distributed storage, tamper-proof mechanisms, and traceability, had advantages in the fixation, preservation, and extraction of electronic evidence. They accepted this kind of evidence in the case, and finally took a decision on the advantage of Huanzhou Huatai. The significance of this case is that it is the first time that the code recognizes the legal effects of electronic evidence via blockchain. So what are the lessons learned from this case and from the use of blockchains and the Chinese experience? Is that blockchain is already available to be used as evidence, mostly with the internet courts, but it's also been acceptable in the people's court or the regular courts. In the case of IP, it can be used for copyright protection, trademark protection, but most importantly, it can be used for trade secret and cyber cells protection. And now I will give the floor to Marta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you
Thank you very much, Matthias. It was a very interesting case. Marta, just let me give you the rights and you're free to go.
Let's see. Okay. Should it working? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I will present you a case from the Southeast Asia IPR SME Helpdesk. So we cover the Asian countries that are those that you can see in the map, just to clarify. Sometimes there is some problem with geography. What I want to talk about is a case of a German company that developed a computer system for a software application on IoT. The topic itself is not so much what this company has developed, but the strategy they use it for patenting it, because they were very interested into Southeast Asia markets, and they made an access in a way that I find is smart and can be used for other companies that have similar kind of products and similar kind of problems. So they had this invention, and first of all, they patented in Europe. And then they started a PCT, so what is called a Patent Cooperation Treaty, which is an international treaty that allows you to start within the 12 months from your first filing what is called an international phase. And from that, then you have 30 months in total to start what is called the national phase. With this national phase, you will apply in the country you desire to have a patent. Why you need to do that is because, as has been mentioned already today, and I don't want to bother you too much on this, an invention to be patentable has to be new. And new means internationally new. So if you have disclosed your invention in the process of a patent application somewhere in the world, your invention is not going to be considered new anymore. So in order not to damage yourself, you have to think a little bit in advance and eventually start a PCT to give yourself the room to think about which countries you are interested and give yourself some time to deliberate and also to see if your patent is accepted or not. What this company did was not just to enter a national phase, whatever it was. They entered in Singapore. Why they decide to do so? They do so because they know that they had a very good patent attorney for sure, that they know that Singapore has a more lenient approach when it comes to patent of software. Because as we have discussed already, software is not always and completely and totally patentable. There are some requirements, and Singapore is particularly in favor if compared to other Southeast Asian countries that have a very much restrictive approach, even compared to the European one. So what they did is that they entered the national phase in Singapore, and when they obtained the Singapore patent, because Singapore is very fast, very, very fast when it comes to patent. We are discussing less than 3 years usually, and they even have some fast track for technology patents. So you can get out quite quickly. They then use another treaty, which is called ASPEC, is in the slide, and it's an internal treaty among the Asian countries that allows a patent applicant to basically transmit, or having an help in transmitting the results from one jurisdiction to the other. So the result of this was that, that they get the patent in Singapore using the time allowed by the PCT, and having the patent in Singapore opened for them the door to apply in other jurisdiction, basically relying on the examination that has been done in Singapore. So they got a patent on a software that, if it was directly filed in Malaysia, for example, probably will not be accepted, because if the Malaysia office has to do the evaluation of patentability, they would have come out, probably, we don't know, but probably with a different evaluation, because they have a more straight view on what are softwares that can be patented. So what's the lesson to learn? Know what you want to obtain and try to take advantage from everything that can help you. So international treaties in the general way, but also like local treaties, regional treaties that can help you achieving a better result. Knowing already that Southeast Asia legislation, but not also them, are quite reluctant to give patent protection for computer programs, while Singapore has a more lenient approach, and they also have, as I said, fast-track initiatives that allows you to obtain a patent sometimes in less than 1 year. They actually, for the fintech track, they were granting patents in 6 months. And this way, and using other aspects, you will have a quick patent in Singapore, but also a quicker patent in other countries that will then rely on the valuation of the Singapore office. Because, to give you an idea, a patent in Thailand can take up to 10 years. If you play a little bit with ASPEC and Singapore fast tracks, you can get it in a lot, significantly less. So that's just a case on how to play smart with your patent and how to take advantage of different international treaty. I understand I bombarded you a little bit with information and maybe weird names. So if you have any question, I'm here to answer, and the material will be shared with you, as Michele said, so please feel free to contact us. Thanks again to everyone, and Michele, the floor is yours.
Very much you once again. We have a couple of questions. Perhaps we can make a quick pause and ask for the first question, which is cloud computing makes available IT and business components that are by definition utilities, the same for everyone. Given that the use of cloud computing is becoming widespread and will be the basis for so many business solutions, what implication does this have for IP strategies and IP management? I think this first question is connected to the first part of the presentation today. So I would direct the question to Professor Wurzer, so that we can answer the first question already and break a little bit the flow of the presentation and then go on with the other two. Is that okay? Professor, I will just unmute you. All right.
Absolutely.
So the question was, Yeah, the cloud computing makes available IT and business components that are, by definition, utilities, the same for everyone. Given that the use of cloud computing is becoming widespread and will be the basis for so many business solutions, what implication does this have for IP strategies and IP management?
Okay. So okay, what I tried to explain is that technology per se don't explain you which kind of patterns do you want to have when you want to optimize the value of your patent portfolio. I know that sounds strange, but it is the cornerstone. Okay, and as long as you stare on AI, on cloud, on whatever, on premises, edge, this is just technology. Okay, so I can only recommend come in some of my educational programs, and I will explain in detail or read the case studies. So when you think about technology, it is just technology, and so it is to a certain extent you can do everything with cloud or with AI. What you really want is the question, what is the experience of a customer? What is the concrete use case? How can we make a certain customer experience unique and that can be used by using cloud? So in terms of, this is an accepted technical mean to solve a technical problem. So explain me, what is the tricky aspect of the technical problem which comes out for realizing a certain use case? And once we have that, then we know that we can apply, for example, a cloud-based technology to realize the use case. But again, it comes out of an understanding of driving customer decisions, of making customer experience unique, of rising productivity, whatever. But it cannot be solved. The question, can we patent that or not? And is that exclusivity helpful or not? Can never be answered just based on technology.
Thank you very much for
and this is true for cloud especially.
Well, yeah.
or computer or I don't know, or software, or that's nice that this is, but it's just technology. It's boring when we ask the question, where comes the value from for customers?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Thank you. So now we break a little bit the flow of the presentation, also to give an answer to one of the questions that you have asked before. I will then now give the word to our expert from Latin America IPR SME Helpdesk, Giovanna Girardi. Thank you very much for joining us today, Giovanna.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's a total pleasure to be with the All-Stars. I'm not sure if I have the control of the slides. It doesn't seem like I do.
Now you do, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so as Professor Verser was saying, the key here is to get into your customer and in your customer's mind, and your customer's mind might actually be you know, and this is something I think a lot when I'm providing the services or helping my clients, is what is the balance of having a business and being the customer myself? What actually do I need to make business sense, and what do I need as a customer? And from there, you start building up your case. No? So here, the example I'm bringing you here is a Spanish company based in Catalonia. They are a software, a technology company, and they created something to improve life of people that have some post-traumatic injuries. So I don't know. Apparently, 4.6 million people have a post-traumatic injury in Spain, and 73 million have a broken arm or leg or a muscle strain within the European territory. 73 million. So it's likely that you actually know someone, if you were not someone that had an injury like that yourself. If I think of my close environment, I had two examples. One was my little brother when he was around 4 or 5, and the other one was my auntie when she was 40 something. My little brother life was not disrupted much. He had a normal plaster cast. It was fun for him. It didn't stop him. He was only 5, so he continued being a little monkey as he was. But the life of my auntie and the life of the family of my auntie was completely disrupted because she broke an arm. Someone had to take over the cooking. Someone had to take over the cleaning. And she was unable to do many things. And if you were in the summer, you can imagine if you have a plaster, you cannot go into water, you sweat a lot, and so many other inconveniences, no? Then again, you can evolve a little bit and have a different casting, which is 100% better, but it's still very bulky and very uncomfortable. Even in summer, you can still not go in the water. You are still going to sweat a lot, and it's uncomfortable. So what is the solution? Well, the solution in this case is what you see there, that is called a skeleton. Is a casting that enables recovery 15 to 20% of the time faster. So your recovery is much quicker, because from the minute you have that skeleton casting in your arm, you can already start doing physiotherapy. And you can go in the water, and you can do your life as nearly as you would normally with a broken arm or leg or whatever you have. No, so this is tailor fitting. It's not what you see here is the end product of thinking of the customer, what the customer need, what was the pain point, how was the customer suffering, right? But the other side of it is the business. What did the business needed to make sense? So it needed like in the 360 view, the commercialization of this product needed a name. So Xcalet, there you have your trademark. It needed design, and the design is so, to me, design is very subjective, but the design here is so wonderful that even it could become a fashion item, right? And then you have the patents behind it, the innovation behind it. And the innovation behind it is a few different things. So is the helicoidal form of the product that creates efficiency for the patient. It enables a fast recovery, it enables an easy assembly of the product. The product has 4 closing, and the patent is also in the closing. The innovation is also in the closing. That can be, if there is any sort of swelling or any sort of infection, it can be enlarged, so the patient has comfort. And the other part of the innovation here is the artificial intelligence used to produce the casting. Okay, so this casting is So you have your broken arm, and you go to your doctor, and he scans your arm or your leg or whatever, and he makes a perfect data collection of your injured member, and transform that data into a tailor-fitting model of the casting that will be then printed in a 3D printing machine. So it went from what is the consumer suffering and how can we solve the problem, to how can this actually make business sense for everyone. And this is a small Spanish company based in Catalonia, as I was saying before, is the first company in the world that used artificial intelligence and 3D printing. As you can imagine, they have won so many prizes of all sorts, from design to the innovation, you know, all sorts of prizes, because it's really incredibly innovative. Now, going beyond the European Union, what is it that you have to think of to do that? If it's Latin America, the US, Southeast Asia, Australia, Japan, what do you have to think of? As Marta was saying, the first thing is take into account international agreements and local regulations, because you might see that the local regulation might be more lenient or might be more restrictive. And then the second thing you have to take into account, that novelty is a worldwide concept. So it has to be new there wherever you go. So to be able to gain ownership rights to this wonderful scheme of intellectual property rights you're building, you need to be able to own this. And then you have to take into consideration what's really important here is deadlines. If you are using PCT or if using the parents agreements, they have deadlines. And if that deadline lapses, then you know, people can explore what you took so long to innovate. And here in Brazil, particularly, you have to think of Brazil is part of the PCT. So that is wonderful news for you. Brazil is also member of the Madrid system, so your trademarks can also be easily covered there. What you should be worrying in Brazil is backlog. And that is something that is not really particularly, nothing you can do basically there. But I think what any entrepreneur worries the most about anything they're doing is 1, commercialization, and 2, counterfeit. And the most efficient way to take care of these 2 is owning what you created. So the only way to do that is take advantage of international treaties, either the PCT, the Paris Agreement, having ownership evidence. No. Now there is a particular thing regarding this example we are giving regarding Brazil. So according to the local legislation, the basic idea behind the software could be protected. The look and feel could be protected. The reverse engineering sometimes and sometimes cannot be protected. The architecture of the software cannot be protected. The patent matter is, if we're talking strictly speaking of a software, generally not. But if we're speaking of something that you created within a scheme of things and it complies with the local legislation, then you have to be very aware of what is and what is not permitted there, and how can you cover that gap. How can you cover, if it's not protectable, then how can you cover that gap? The assembly language cannot be protected, machine language, partial assembly language. So here is actually the 360, the commercialization will need a 360 view of what you need. The trademark, the design, the patents, and from there you can start building your business model. To, you know, here is, you'll be thinking this casting is being 3D printed, right? So how can you avoid customers individually printing them at home? You can't, because in Brazil, if someone that level of privacy is allowed. If you're not producing to commercialize, then even if there is a patent, you are still allowed to do it. So, but the good thing here, even though it's 3D printing, if you have a broken member, if you have an injury like that, a post-traumatic injury, I don't think you would be brave enough to do the whole procedure of printing something on your own without actually checking up with your doctor first. So that is where you're building a business model. And I think with that, I've covered everything. If you have any questions for me, please.
Yes, the questions are going to be at the end of the last presentation that we're going to have. But thank you very much, Giovanna, for your experience and also description of the system in Brazil, and for the very interesting example actually that you have brought to the discussion today. I would then go on with the last of our examples within today. That is connected to the EU-Japan Technology Transfer Helpdesk. So I will then take the word back again and give it to Nicole. Is that correct?
So this is Nicole, but it's going to be Rie Takahashi who's going to give his introduction. I don't think we have control of the slides yet.
No, you don't. I just give it to you now. Okay, so thank you, Rie, also for being with us. Thank you, Nicole, for being with us as well. It's a pleasure to have the chance to hear one of your cases from Japan. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello, I'm Rie Takahashi, a patent attorney.
Rie, excuse me, I need to stop you because we cannot hear your sound. I have now unmuted you. You should be able to speak. Excuse me.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay. Hello again. I'm Rie Takahashi. I'm a patent attorney at Sonoda Corporation in Japan. Oh.
Do we have control of the slides?
Yes. You just need to press. You just need to press the arrow to go on, or the roll of your mouse. Correct.
Okay. Seems okay now. Okay, then Okay, I'm going to talk about overviews of Japanese patent law and JPO examination practice related to digital patents and introduce one case example. Okay, to the next slide.
Shall I change the slide for you? I'll do it for you. Then you just tell me the next slide and we can do it like that.
Okay.
Great.
I picked up the example of Japanese company Video Matching Incorporated, which was founded in 2018, so very recently. They are offering an online application which facilitates the interview process between recruiting companies and job seekers. Especially due to the ongoing global pandemic, this kind of service has become very popular. To protect their idea, they filed a patent application on December 25th in 2018 at the JPO with the title Human Resource Matching Apparatus, Human Resource Matching Method, and Human Resource Matching Program. The invention relates to a matching application with which job recruiters and job seekers can exchange their presentation videos and have a computer conduct matching based on information submitted by job recruiters and job seekers. Video Matching Incorporated requested accelerated examination of the application and succeeded in getting a patent for this heavily software-related invention within less than 2 months from filing. This company is now advertising their product on their website, even posting the patent number. On the upcoming slides, I would like to explain by using this example how it is possible to protect digital inventions in Japan. Could you go to the next slide? Oh, sorry, thank you. Oh, as you see on the slide, in Article 2 of the Japanese patent law, the invention is defined as a highly advanced creation of technical ideas utilizing the laws of nature. Now here's a key phrase, utilizing the laws of nature, which I will talk about later. As in many other jurisdictions, the invention includes a product invention and a method invention. In this Article 2 of Japanese patent law, a computer program, it's specifically defined as one type of the product invention which can be patented. More specifically, the definition of a product includes a program, which is defined as a set of instructions given to an electronic computer, which are combined in order to produce a specific result, and also information that is to be processed by an electronic computer equivalent to a program. Regarding the second item, information that is to be processed by an electronic computer equivalent to a program, one example is a logical data structure, which defines operations of computers, such as a tree data structure. A claim does not need to start from a program. Even if a claimed subject matter is a learned model, a neural network, or the like, the claimed subject matter is considered as a program if it defines operations of a computer for producing a specific result. Most important here is the key phrase, utilizing the laws of nature. JPO Examination Handbook has an annex summarizing the examination practice for computer software-related inventions. These computer software-related inventions include the inventions of computer programs and equivalent thereof, as I just explained, as well as method invention specifying a series of operations executed by a computer. On the slide at the bottom, you can see a link to the English version of that part of the examination handbook. As I said, the JPO examination standards set forth some criteria which apply specifically to computer software-related inventions. But this does not mean that those special criteria automatically apply when the words like computer or a program appear in a claim. As shown on the slide, if the claimed invention as a whole is regarded as utilizing the laws of nature, regardless of whether the invention includes computer software, that invention is deemed to be a statutory invention. In that case, special consideration from the viewpoint of computer software are unnecessary. For example, the examination standards say that an invention for controlling machinery or performing a process relating to machinery is regarded as utilizing the laws of nature, regardless of whether the invention includes computer software. An invention relating to engine control, for example, falls in this category. As another example explicitly referred to in the examination standards, an invention for processing data relevant to the technical feature of an object is regarded as utilizing the laws of nature. An invention relating to image processing, for example, falls in this category. On the other hand, something based only on man-made rules or mental activities of humans are not considered as utilizing the laws of nature. Gaming rules per se or business method per se, which do not involve any computerized process or other technical means to implement them, are not considered as utilizing the laws of nature for that reason, and thus not deemed to be statutory inventions. Now, what happens if a claimed invention appears to relate to a business method or the like, but involves some computerized processes? This is where the special criteria for the computer software-related inventions apply. Here you can see on the slide the last yellow bullet, the criteria as to in which case the software-related invention is considered as utilizing the laws of nature. Regarding inventions such as computer software for business, computer software for games, or computer software for numerical processes, if an information processing apparatus or methodology is concretely constructed by cooperation of software and hardware resources according to the purpose of use, this invention is deemed to utilize the laws of nature. Cooperation, software, and hardware resources is a key phrase here. Now let's go to case study. Could you go to the next slide? Okay. Now, you may wonder how a claim should be drafted to express that the claimed invention is concretely constructed by cooperation with software and hardware resources. Here I show the example of video matching incorporated patent. You can see on the slide an English translation of a granted claim. As mentioned before, the title of the invention is Human Resource Matching Apparatus, Human Resource Matching Method, and Human Resource Matching Program. Granted claim 1 of this patent is an apparatus claim, but I chose here a counterpart method claim 8 to show you that the claimed subject matter per se does not need to be hardware. Now let me read out the claim. The preamble says, a human resource matching method for matching job recruiters and job seekers, the method having a computer execute. The phrase, the method having a computer execute, is important here. Then the claim recites a job seeker video acquisition step of acquiring job seeker videos, which are presentation videos by job seekers. The claim further recites a job recruiter video acquisition step, a video providing step, a follow acquisition step, and a matching step. I did not include steps 3 and 4 on the slide. As the claim says the method having a computer execute in the preamble, all these 5 steps are to be executed by a computer, not by a human being. During examination, the third step, the video providing step, was limited to overcome the lack of inventive step rejection. However, However, no reason was no. Excuse me. Sorry, however, no rejection was issued based on subject matter eligibility. This means that for this case, the JPO considered reciting the method having computer executing the preamble was enough to deem the claim inventions as utilizing the laws of nature. Learning from this is that it is not necessarily required to say that this unit in the computer do this step and that unit in the computer do that step so much in detail in the claim. However, this does not mean that the description in the specification drawings also do not need to be much in detail. In this patent, embodiments of the invention are described in detail in the specification, using not only a flowchart copied on the slide, but also system structure diagram and diagrams showing data structure in respective databases. When a claim is written using functional language and it cannot be understood from the specification how those functions may be implemented and executed by hardware and software, the JPO examiner may issue rejection for not satisfying enablement requirements. This may have happened with patent if the embodiment had been described only with a simple flowchart and with little explanation regarding concrete operations in the computer. Regarding inventive step, just implementing a known business method using a computer in a manner easily conceivable to one skilled in the art who had common technical knowledge in that business field and computer technology field, it's considered as a demonstration of ordinary creativity of one skilled in art, which does not constitute inventive step in Japan. The JPO tends to have more strict stance regarding inventive step or software-related inventions compared to their stance to the subject matter eligibility. When lack of inventive step rejection is notified, having concrete embodiments of hardware operations described in the specification drawings will help finding a good option claim limitations to overcome the rejection. So here are some key messages on the last slide. Could you go to the last slide, please? Oh. Okay, great. Although a claim for a computer software-related invention is required to be drafted in a manner expressing that the claimed invention is concretely constructed by cooperation of software and hardware resources, the JPO recently tends to be not very strict on subject matter eligibility and to accept software-related inventions as statutory inventions. Still, it is important to describe in the specification drawings a concrete example as to how the operations specified by the software are specifically executed by hardware resources. This is to secure options of claim amendments to overcome lack of novelty and lack of inventive step rejection when those rejections are notified, and also to satisfy description requirements such as enablement requirement or support requirement. Another lesson learned by looking at this case is that it is possible to get a patent very fast in some cases where accelerated examination is requested. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and please do not hesitate to contact me if you have questions or if you need assistance with protecting your invention in Japan. Sorry for my voice in the middle. And I will get it back to the chair.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much for the presentation and the brief introduction to the Japanese system. And which is for all of us, I think, very much unknown, except for Luca, of course, our colleague from the EU-Japan Technology Transfer Helpdesk. Would you like to say something in addition, Luca? Because I heard that you connected yourself. Is there anything that you wanted to say and I have interrupted you? I apologize if that was the case.
No, Michele, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Yeah, This is Luca. I also left a message in the chat window. I would like to thank everyone, the co-organizers today, all the attendees, and Ria, of course, and Nicole for being with us today. So, as I mentioned in the chat, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I left my contact details and the URL also of the Helpdesk website. So, thanks much again, and please, Michele. Yours.
Perfect. Yeah, that gives me also the chance to remind that the contacts, the websites, and all those information are going to be in the follow-up email that you will receive later on in the afternoon, as I said before, or tomorrow morning. Somebody has connected a little bit later than the planned hour of 10 o'clock, like 10:15, 10:20, so you didn't hear that. Do not worry. I saw that there are a couple of questions regarding this issue. Don't worry about that, because you're going to receive all the slides, the recording link, and also our website addresses and so on the follow-up email later on. I am going to close the presentation with a couple of words that I have understood from my humble position today regarding all the presentation and what we have covered, and I put together a couple of lines here, a couple of interesting points, I would say. First of all, we have talked about the IP design and digital transformation. We have seen how the digitalization of the machines actually makes the machine smarter, but it has a limit. It has a limit in that that you cannot, at a certain point, make a machine even smarter than it is possible. It is actually possible. Therefore, we have seen a second layer of digitalization activities, which we have called the digitalization in the environment. And we have seen what the machine can actually do together. And finally, the so-called digital transformation that we have seen from Professor Wurzer, very interesting. And we have seen the relationship that intellectual property has with those three different areas of the digitalization activities, with a lot of very interesting example, which personally I very much appreciated, even though it was the second time I had the privilege to see the presentation. Then I was very happy to have the chance to see a couple of slides from Matthias regarding the blockchain technology. I have to say I'm pretty ignorant myself when it comes to blockchain, so thank you very much for this introductory presentation that I hope can be useful for you as well. And then we have seen software IP and a couple of protection strategies. Thank you, Marta, for your contribution, because sometimes, yes, protection activities are, of course, the basis, but you need to do them in the proper way in order to ensure success. And that was an example of how to do it. And then we had a concrete case of medical innovation in Brazil. Well, actually, it was in Spain, but going down to Brazil, we have seen what is actually needed in order to ensure that you're going to receive protection in there as well, and therefore that your marketing activities are going to be as smooth as possible. That was also an interesting part of the presentation. And finally, we have just come up with video matching incorporated, Japanese example of the digital activities, and a lot of information regarding software and the Japanese system. which for many of us, and I include myself among this group of people, is completely unknown. So thank you very much, Ria, for that as well. Now, since we are at the end of our presentation, I am going to leave the floor to your questions. We have received a couple of them. I think you should be able to see this. I've answered the first one already, so I'm just going to pin it down. And there's the second question we can see here. Is the IP design methodology mentioned by Dr. Wurzel implemented in the Horizon 2020 IP management? Alexander, would you like to answer the question? Perhaps I can complete it regarding Horizon 2020 activities if you'd like, but I just leave you the floor.
Yeah, so this methodology is first of all a kind of thinking, and yes, it is reflected in the logic. So we have now a new ISO standard, the 5600, which reflects the understanding of IP management on the ISO level. This kind of understanding is also implemented in Horizon 2020, and it is a general understanding that we need, especially when it comes to digital transformation, market-orientated IP, especially patents which come from the perspective, especially what we heard today from customer decisions, customer benefit, and not purely or solely invention driven. And so this is exactly the logic which is in the different initiatives now reflected.
Thank you very much for the clear answer. Now I have a question for Matthias, which is about blockchain. So one question to the Chinese, well, to the China IPR Helpdesk, SME Helpdesk presentation. What happens in case something gets blockchain, which is already a trademark or a patent or something else in another country? Just let me retrieve the audio. There we go. Matthias, you were muted. You are muted. You should unmute yourself. I cannot mute you. Well, I perhaps can take care of the question directly. I cannot retrieve the audio of Matthias, but just write down, Matthias, if you don't like my answer. I think in principle, blockchain is a tracking system, so to say. So you use that in order to ensure that there is a certain time, certain date, certain place where information have been enshrined in the blocks that are part of the system. So if something in there is already trademarked or patented, well, actually, you're not using that within the market, as we have said before, but you are simply tracking pretty much its existence or that it is actually working. So in my humble opinion, it does not create problems that some of the information contained in the blockchain are trademarked or patented. But we can redirect also this question to our helpline that is going to answer in a more precise manner. Yes, and please, Luca, you can complete as well.
Crazy, no?
So you will be happy to use it. So write one more.
Okay. There we go with the second question. Then there is a fourth question, which is about to which extent is a ML algorithm controlling 3D printing patentable, say mathematical algorithm controlling 3D printing is patentable. Is there anyone that would like to answer to this question? Otherwise, I can take care of the question myself. I think we have been talking about 3D printing a little bit in the our presentation regarding Latin America with Giovanna. If you'd like to answer this question quickly, otherwise I can also take care of it.
Can you just repeat the question for me, please?
Yes, definitely. To which extent is a mathematical algorithm controlling 3D printing patentable?
I'm sorry?
To which extent is a mathematical algorithm controlling 3D printing patentable? So I think as far as I know, pretty much behind the hardware of the printer, we have a software that is telling to the printer how to carry out the printing activities. So what kind of shape is going to be printed, how to reach that shape, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The question here is to which extent this algorithm that is controlling these software capabilities of the 3D printer is actually patentable. And yeah, it's a tricky question, I would say.
Yeah.
But if
the algorithm here is not the object of the patent of Scalet, okay? Is
yeah.
the system. Is this,
yeah.
like you were saying, the system itself? It has a is the artificial intelligence behind it, and
yeah.
the machine learning thing. So it's the system of sending information from one thing to the other, not the algorithm of sorry, I can
of the printer. Yeah. No, in fact, the point here, I think the question here is more about patentability of software, to which we actually have a couple of webinars dedicated. So it's the patentability of software is a very, very large topic that we cannot really cover in this few minutes question. So I will insert as well within the follow-up email that we're going to be sending out to all of you, also a link that is going to send you to another webinar that we have offered throughout this year, which is regarding software patentability. And I think for this question, this is going to be, I think, of biggest interest for you, and is going to explain this very sensible thematic in much more time that we could be doing now. So it's exactly 12 o'clock. Given that we've had a couple of delays due to the audio and the organization, I would still leave you a few minutes of time to ask further questions if you'd like. In the meanwhile, if you are still thinking about questions, I would anyway thank you very much, all of you who have taken part to our webinar and chosen to spend these 2 hours with us. It's been a pleasure. We are going to be off for the summer break, and we're going to be back in September with our webinar schedule that is already available on the calendar of the European IP Helpdesk, on the other calendars of the other helpdesks as well. You just need to check the websites online. But of course, my biggest thank you goes to our speakers that have decided to teach us a couple of information today. Personally, I come out of this webinar much more with much more knowledge than how I had before, and it's been a very interesting 120 minutes for me. So thank you, Marta, thank you, Matthias, thank you, Rie, and thank you, Giovanna, and thank you, Alexander. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody.